Welcome back everybody, this is Tyler Weeb from Pro Physique, and in today's video we're going to talk about refeeds and diet breaks. Alright, welcome back everybody. I hope you are all having a great week here so far. Almost the weekend, another week down of quarantine. I know plenty of you are probably having your gyms starting to open, which is always a good time. I know for me, I think like I said in previous videos, end of June, end of May, the gyms are opening up here. Basically, we're like in the 12 days of Christmas, right? Just counting down the days, getting ready for Gym Eve. Really excited and looking forward to getting back into it. But let's go ahead and start diving into today's topic. But before we get there, just make sure to go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you're not missing out on any future content. And if you would like to see any topics talked about in future videos, or if you have a question that you would like to have explained more in depth, feel free to just go ahead, go over to my Instagram here, shoot me a DM. I'd be more than happy to get to those in the future. Or you can just always leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to get to those topics in future videos. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. And so today I wanted to talk about diet breaks and refeeds. So with quarantine coming to the end, some of us are probably wanting to jump into a diet here, or maybe you are in prep and you are a little unsure of what is going on with shows this year, what to do. Well, this is where these things can really come into play and really help people who are dieting extend their diet and have a lot more success with their diet. So we're going to talk about refeeds first, and then we're going to dive into diet breaks. So first of all, what is a refeed day? So a refeed day is typically going to be 1 day a week where we have a higher carb, lower protein, and a little bit of a lower fat day. So what we want to do with this day is, at the beginning of a diet, we're having some initial drops, we're going along quite nicely. Maybe now some hunger starting to kick in. We've been dieting for 4, 5, 6 weeks, so it's been a decent amount of time of just straight dieting. Maybe we are getting a little psychologically tired from the dieting, things like that. And so what can this refeed do is just give us a nice little mental boost throughout the day, throughout the week, to really give us something to work towards, almost a carrot at the end of the stick type of scenario where it's like, okay, all I gotta do right now is diet for 6 days and then I get a day of higher carbs. So that can be really helpful for a lot of people that do maybe tend to have a long way to go. They're having a very long diet, and at the beginning it can be really nice to just kind of have that mental break throughout the week where you do maybe get to include a few more of your favorite treats into your day that maybe you can't during your typical dieting day. So how do we go about setting up the refeed day? Well, typically what I will do is I will bring protein down to a very minimal level, so 0.8 grams per pound. So that's why I always like to start my clients, or get my clients, up to a point where their protein is 1 to 1.2 grams per pound, because when we do diet, now we've got a lot of nice wiggle room when it comes to that refeed day. And you'll see how that will actually play a role in your diet break as well, and be pretty helpful. So I always like to make sure that protein is up so I can have a nice big gap between the calories that I'm going to be putting into carbs that I'm going to be taking away from protein. So if I can take away 30, 40, 50 grams of protein, depending on where the body weight is, how much protein they're eating, things like that. Well, that's a lot of carbs that I can give that person on that refeed day, which can make that day a lot more fun. So set your protein 0.8. Take the difference in calories. So in protein, there are 4 calories per gram, same with carbs. So you're able to easily just interchange them real quickly. So you're just able to interchange them really easily and really quickly. So that is how I would set up the refeed day. Now, depending on maybe how much muscle you have, you can go a little extra more in your calorie allotment for that refeed day. As long as you are within 1 to 200 calories of that refeed, you should be okay. That should still be around your maintenance levels. For me personally, I always like to be cautious, right? Because it's always a lot easier to add in more than to take away from someone. So for me, for the most part, I do prefer to start off with just straight regular like calories, right? I don't really add a whole lot of calories into that refeed day. I like to get a sense of how that person reacts to that refeed day first. And then if I start to notice that they do react favorably to it, and maybe they're not feeling quite satisfied, because remember, it still is the same calories, we're just swapping protein and carbs. Okay, well, you know what? Let's add an extra 100 calories. Let's do another 100 calories worth of carbs, and let's see how you react. So they can be changed as you move forward and how you notice how you react to that refeed day. A good tip would be, okay, weigh yourself after a refeed day for 2-3 weeks. What does your weight do? Does it drop? If it drops, hey, add in a little more food. Does it drop again? Well, let's add in maybe a little bit more food. Now, I wouldn't get too far ahead with that. You would want to be cautious going over 250 calories over, what you are eating for your dieting macros, but you should feel safe within that range. For fats, I will typically keep the same or drop just a little bit, just so we can give you a little bit more calories into your carbs. Carbs are protein sparing, so that's why we are able to kind of drop the protein quite a bit, add in a bit more carbs, maybe the fat's a little bit lower so we can get some more carbs in, and then that's how you have your refeed day set up. Now, I would recommend doing this on a day where the next day you probably have a very hard training day. So let's say, it's Thursday, Friday is your heavy leg day, and plus you've got an hour of cardio to do. Well, a good idea would be to have that higher carb day on Thursday so that those carbs are sitting in the muscle so that when you go into Friday, you're ready to go, you're full of energy, you've had some meals in you, and you're ready to kind of crush your workout. Now, the 1 day a week is probably not gonna have a lot of influence on the metabolic adaptations that do occur with dieting. And so as you get further into the diet and as you start to get leaner, you may want to start looking at setting up a double refeed day. So we're taking the exact same concepts that we just talked about, but now you're just doing 2 days in a row. That's it. So you do 5 days of training, 2-day back-to-back refeed. So that one is what I would recommend as the diet starts to get a little bit longer, as that person starts to get a little bit leaner, their food starts to get a little bit lower, cardio starts to get a little bit higher, and maybe you notice that, hey, you know what, energy is really starting to dip, right? And that's where a lot of feedback from your clients is really important, or feedback, to yourself, be able to recognize when, hey, you know what, maybe I need to add in that second day. So those are how you would set up a refeed. Typically, you are gonna just see a 1 or 2 day refeed. If you do start getting into 3, 4, 5 days of a refeed, well, then we might as well call it a diet break, which works perfectly for that transition, as now we're gonna move into diet breaks. So what are diet breaks? Well, they are the exact same concept as a refeed, but we're actually taking a lot longer of a time than just 2 days to hit our refeed day macros. So these can be done a couple of ways. Not in terms of how you set them up. You are gonna set them up in the exact same way you would a refeed day, but there are a few different other caveats. So there's a couple ways, like I said, that you can go about it. You can either go about it in the way that it was done in the study, when the study came out, which was 2 weeks of dieting, 2 weeks of diet break, 2 weeks of dieting, 2 weeks of diet break, back and forth. What this shows is that this does allow the dieting experience to be extended for a much longer time. People tend to lose a little bit more weight on this, and it can make the diet a lot more compliable, because all you have to do is get through 2 weeks of dieting and then you have a 2-week diet break. Or one way I do also like to go about it. I'm not a huge fan of that. Sometimes, I do like to get some really good dieting and see some good drops over some weeks, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Everyone is a little bit different before I implement a diet break, and that's the way I really like to do these things. So we'll diet hard. We'll go. If we're dropping, I don't really want to interrupt that caloric deficit. I want to kind of continue to bring out that weight, continue to see some drops, as long as we're feeling good, right? Those are things you do want to pay attention to. But as soon as we hit a plateau, or we're starting to feel really run down, or we're starting to come maybe a little bit closer to the end of the diet and we're about to be done, diet breaks are going to be a great way to implement into your week, into maybe 2 weeks, so that you can continue to extend the diet. And also, these are actually now going to help us with some of those metabolic adaptations that do occur with dieting, and can actually start to almost reverse them a little bit, so that the body almost thinks that, hey, you know what? I'm not dieting anymore. I'm gonna start to reverse some of these processes. You got 2 weeks, and then boom, at the end of the 2 weeks, as long as you've been holding steady, or even you've been dropping weight, jump back into those macros, and that's almost gonna kind of shock the body or trick the body into going, okay, now we're back into the diet. Some of those metabolic processes have reversed, and then you can kind of almost hit it again with the same amount of calories and cardio that you were doing before the diet break. All right, I hope that all makes sense. I know there was a lot there, but basically all you're going to be doing is bringing up your calories to that refeed day / maintenance numbers, right? So within a few hundred calories of your dieting macros, and then you're also actually going to be cutting your cardio in half. So that is also a really great way to get the body recovering. You can spend some more energy and time with your lifting and your training, which is always going to be a bigger, better output of calories than just walking on the treadmill. So diet breaks, a few ways you can go about it. If you have an exorbitant amount to lose, 60, 70, 80 pounds, I would definitely recommend that you do 3 weeks of dieting, 1 to 2 weeks diet break, and go back and forth with that pattern. If you're someone maybe more in the 20 to 30 pound range, and depending on how long the diet is going to be, you probably only need 1 or 2 diet breaks in there. Again, it does depend on the context and the situation of that person, but for the most part, you really shouldn't need too many diet breaks within that short time frame of a diet. Alright guys, that is going to be everything. I know I probably could talk about these a little bit longer, but I've already gone long enough. This is a bit of a longer video, so thank you for sticking with this if you are still watching. If you have any questions about diet breaks or refeeds, feel free to shoot me a DM or just leave the question down below. I'd be more than happy to answer any and all of your questions a little more in depth if you'd like it, and we will talk again soon.